John and Alan are the only two people that we trust to ever develop content for our clients. And I can say with a high level of confidence that we spend a lot of money on bad content, right? But not with these two. And so this has been a trial and error experience. We're speaking from a theoretical perspective more than an experience perspective. And so I want to get into it. So really quickly, John, can you give a very quick 60-second elevator overview of ChatGPT and how it works?
Yeah, it's I talked about it with some of my team, and we now refer to it internally as HAL 9000 from Space Odyssey. It is, I think if I have the history correct, it was designed to be a better chat bot for companies, hence the name ChatGPT. But the applications for generating content through AI is what this mechanism is all about. You can ask it questions, you can have it explain something, you can give it certain directions like include keywords, or we're just talking about finding a reputable source, and I'll let Alan talk about that. But it is producing content that that comes pretty close to the Turing test, I would say, in a scary way. I'm more scared for its abuse than I am for its use, though. So
yeah. And so you guys have both, I'm assuming generated a bunch of content. Alan, overall feedback, right? So you've got a good post on this. Overall perspective, just high level of what's coming out of ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, my first thoughts were, do I even need to dig into this, right? And then when I did, my immediate next thoughts were, oh shit. And because it was really good and I was not expecting it to respond with well thought out content. And I read it and I went, wait a minute, that sounds like stuff that I've written. Like that's eerie. But then I did some digging, and we'll get into the post, and it's pretty surface level. There's a lot of like flaws that I think that can be overcome, but initial thoughts are we really have to take this seriously. If we ignore it or put our head in the sand, we're going to regret it, especially in the business that we're in. But also I want to be at the forefront of understanding it because, well, we're going to be behind if we don't. So that's my initial thoughts anyway.
Okay. John, your perspective?
I don't, when I looked at it, I was always looking at it, not from today, but down the road.
Okay.
So
have we landed it down the road already? Are we already there? Like, I thought this might be something that's 5-10 years out, but it feels like to some extent we've landed a bit.
No, I think things have been accelerated a lot here.
Okay.
Little things. I did searches like we would do, or basic content we might do for an FAQ, maybe a more evergreen type of post. Then I took it, I ran it through Grammarly, and there was some, minor stuff, but that's what we might do with one of our writers. Right. But then I hit the plagiarism check on Grammarly, and it came up 0. It's not really. And maybe it's just what I was asking about. We'll talk about Google duplication spotting and all that kind of stuff. But my impression is to hate it. My impression is, as Alan said, to understand it and know it. I can pick it apart and say, well, there's no tone, there's no voice, there's no personality.
Right.
But as I say, that I can see where that's going.
So you mentioned plagiarism, Alan. I know you've done some plagiarism tests also. Share your findings.
I started asking regular prompts that we would normally do if we're making just a basic page, just personal injury or whatever. One of the things I asked was, tell me about car accident compensation in California. And the answer came back 33% plagiarized. That's quite a bit. And I think that it was 250 words. I asked about, give me moped injuries. I was just throwing things out there, 23% plagiarized. I still have not gotten anything that's been less than 15% plagiarized. Now that is workable because I plagiarize myself all the time because I've been doing this for so long, but a lot of work on the back end to have to go back in and, a lot of inaccurate information. I asked it a question that I knew was going to be a little bit more complicated. Are there damage caps for, a successful personal injury claim in Michigan? It gave me a half right answer, right? It didn't specify between, the medical malpractice, non-economic damages from regular. So it's those kind of things, but it spits out, I think, you quoted this on LinkedIn, it spits out information as if in a really convincing way that you think it's real. And an editor who maybe, or a writer who's doing this, who doesn't maybe know the source material, is going to miss that. And it's going to end up on a lawyer's page, and then someone's going to be in trouble. So I just don't know if it's there yet.
You expressed
we should,
yeah, go ahead.
We should talk about how you can be more specific, whether you want certain keywords included, whether you want to have a quote or cite from a reputable source. That to me, I think, is the game changer, that it's taking directions. It's not taking, describe premises liability and getting that. When you say, and I want it to have slip and fall, or, open and apparent, or open and obvious, and those types of things, and focus on it. And it's not doing it in the bad hat keywording that we're used to in the past. It's clean. It's readable.
So, Alan, you said this. I thought it was very articulate. Ironic to use the word articulate with exactly what we're talking about here. But you wrote, ChatGPT presents incorrect information as if it's a fact, and in a very convincing way, right? I think that is the question is, can you use AI to overcome that incorrect information piece? And I don't know the answer to. I think the answer at this point is no, right?
Not yet, I don't think, but I think it's going to figure it out. That's the thing. And I just a little while ago asked it, I said, I want a 500-word blog post for a law firm on the topic of how dangerous distracted driving is. And I want you to use statistics from reputable sources with citations. And I'll be damned if it didn't pop out with something that looked really good with sources at the end. Still came back 17% plagiarized, but and probably more on Copyscape. Grammarly tends to underestimate that. But that, it's a scary thing, and I want to know how to use it. I want to figure out if it's going to replace writers, which is the ethics part that we'll talk about.
Right.
But it does, like as John said, it takes directions, and if you don't like what it spits out, rearrange your question a little bit, or say, I need you to add this to that. It will do it.
I had one of my experiences. I tried to get it to write instructions for me to talk to my kids about getting divorced in Wisconsin, using Old English Shakespeare, right? And it conflated divorce and Old English Shakespeare, explaining Old English Shakespeare and divorce to my kids in Wisconsin, right? So it didn't get the stylistic piece, but then you kind of change how you approach that, and it actually does change its approach. And what we learned is, asking for a Shakespearean sonnet, it actually gets, because it understands what a sonnet is, right? And so those types of things are really, really fascinating, the way that works. You touched on the ethics of this, right? And I am I'm a marketer, so by definition I have low on the ethical, moral side of things. As a group, but what are the ethical questions this raises, and how do you see that evolving?
Well, I mean, as with any tech, right, the human element, that's the thing for me. I really enjoy the team that we built at Blue 7, and the first thought with this is, I don't want to be forced to have to change, and then the team's gone. Right. No matter what kind of tech we're talking about, we have to look at the human element of how this affects people, instead of looking at it from a cold way without any regard. I think, I don't know where we go. Do we move forward and say, we don't need you anymore, go figure out something else to do? Do we trust everything that we're getting off of this in the long term? I don't know. It's just it's a philosophical question for me, because I don't know where we go. John, maybe you got any ideas?
Yeah, and I don't think my head's in the sand too much. I've been accused of worse, but when we're dealing with, in our world, a market of attorneys who have been trained on the written word,
yeah,
who want that, particularly in litigation, want that flair, want that signature voice or whatever in what they're writing. I think you're going to have to really tear that away from a lot of people to be able to accept. I mean, there are people that still don't use the tools we talked about: grammar check, spell check, site check, whatever. They're still doing it by hand.
Right.
So I feel some comfort in that. But I don't know what it looks like over the long term. I would say there's ethics and there's ethics. If I can, I'm going to speak to the legal ethics.
Sure, go.
Which is this isn't going to stay in marketing content. This is, somebody's going to try, just like there's there's talk right now about some real concern at the high school and college level, and about plagiarism that way. But the biggest concern is, for now, you can't trust that it's all correct. And with legal nuances and rules and shades of fault and whatever, I think we've got a little bit more runway left. But I can't say it any better than Alan said. I think we all have a responsibility to our people, and our people. We hire our people because they're very talented, and they like adverbs, which is something that ChatGPT isn't really doing yet.
Right.
So,
and that the nuance. I had a client. I think he's in the attendees now. There's a very particular way that they like posts done, and there's zero chance that ChatGPT would be able to do that. So I know for sure that they're going to need a human writer, always. You can't pull out current information and current laws yet. That, as I pointed out in the post, people really underestimate what it will take to have this program run real time with data connected to the internet. We do not have that computing power, and we will not have that for quite a while. But it can't. That's a metaverse kind of thing, and the computing power just isn't there. And we're years, decade or more away from even coming close to it being all encompassing. It's just reading from 2021 backwards right now. Right. So that's a big thing. But this can be a good tool. If I wanted to come up with topics for H2s in a post, and I asked it, this is such a good tool to use for that, because I don't need to worry about inaccurate information. I just need headings. I asked it to come up with 10 blog posts for a divorce law firm to see what it would do. It gave me, Then I said, get more creative with it. The immediate thing I asked it, and I'll be damned if it didn't give me some good topics to write about that I haven't thought about. Well, I'm sitting here racking my brain for hours at a time thinking of like a content strategy. It can do it for you. That part I think is fine. No ethical problems whatsoever. And you get to keep all your human writers. So
I think treat it as a content assistant. I call it a content assistant. We say virtual assistant. It is, but it's a content assistant. And in that view, I think, as Alan said, I'm comfortable with it.
I love it. Do you envision working with your people to use this as a tool to make what they're delivering better? Is that what you're saying?
I would, and we'll talk about it. But also, I really worry about it's going to get too easy, and it just will have to be a deep conversation we have with our team to copy and paste that over. If it looks good, then I can use it, right? But I don't know at what point Google is going to come along and be able to read the fingerprints of this type of content, and then all of a sudden we have spent a year populating attorney websites with AI assisted or AI content, and then bam, a new update comes out, and then what happens to your website then? So are you going to take a chance right now and then go all AI when in the future you're going to be screwed? And I thought about this a little while ago. If AI is just making more AI content, then AI is going to keep borrowing from AI. It becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But then all it's going to take is one person to go, you know what? We're going to step out of this. I'm going to be a human writer again. And then all of a sudden that human writer is ranking better than the AI content again. So I think once you start digging and looking, it's really exciting. It's really nice for law firms to think, I don't have to have a content team anymore. I can just do this. But I think if you start looking at, if we don't talk to them about why, without it sounding like we're self-serving, they're going to be a problem down the road. There's just a lot to think about.
So I am familiar with this, but I'll ask the question so it's not Conrad talking. Can you talk about Google's perspective, either of you, on Google's perspective on AI generated content and have either of you gone deep on what this means for today's SEO content development world?
I haven't yet.
All right. So let me read this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say they've mentioned it. Google has talked about it, but I don't know what movement they're making. Surely they're brainstorming right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, so this was a statement that came out from Mueller on April 6th of this year. So I think they had a little bit of prescience on this. This is very much against Google's spam guidelines, and I'll read it for you. This is Mueller talking about Google's positions. For us, these would essentially still fall into the category of automatically generated content, which is something we've had in the Webmaster Guidelines since almost the beginning. And people have been automatically generating content in lots of different ways. And for us, if you're using machine learning tools to generate your content, it's essentially the same as if you're just shuffling words around or looking up synonyms or doing the translation tricks that people used to do, those kind of things. My suspicion is maybe the quality of content is a little bit better than the really old school tools, but for us, it's still automatically generated content. And that means for us, it's still against Webmaster Guidelines. We would consider that to be spam. My counterpoint on that is like some of the stuff on law firm websites is pretty garbage, right? And,
it is.
And my cynical perspective is this actually might be a better experience given some of the stuff that's on law firm websites. I hate to say that, but like,
oh, we just did a post on bad, and we literally titled it bad law firm content. So I guess we'll rank for that keyword somewhere, which I don't know if that says good or bad thing, but this does much better than some of the stuff that we found and put out as examples, but also they were probably using some older form of AI or a non-native speaker and didn't edit it. But this, again, as someone who's been doing this a while, I really could find use with this tool. I'm excited about it. At the end of my post, I said, if we run from this, it's not going to work out. Like, it's not going to work out. We got to figure out how to use this as another tool to improve the posts that we do. I think it's a good thing, but we have to just know how to do it.
There's a comment from David Rakowski here. ChatGPT I look at it like Photoshop. It's a tool, but just as we would never give a writer an assignment and not review it, I think the same holds true here. Secondly, and I appreciate the plaudits here. Connor made a great point on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing the other day. For those of us who think AI is junk, how does it compare to much of the junk that is already out there? Right? And there is a lot of junk already out there. Here's a question from Mr. Romano out of Portland, Oregon. Isn't this just a modern or updated version of spun content, which has all been prohibited by Google? Do you guys agree with that?
I mean, it is, but it's thinking, right? That's the scary part. Can it think itself out of the fingerprints of the algorithm to detect it? This is just so it's hard to even describe how much more advanced this is than what has come before it. So Google is probably over there panicking, going, "Oh shit, this is better than we thought." So we have to figure out how to either let it be, which they're not. They're gonna find some way to detect it. What they do with that's up in the air.
Right.
But yeah, it can be spun content, but eventually it's going to spin itself. I think it will eventually spin itself into non-existence if we don't figure out how to use it.
John?
Well, it's the old joke that everything that's can be written has already been written, right? What if this is actually writing what's been written better?
Yeah.
So it's love. It's like I said, it's love hate. Love to hate it, hate to love it.
You really, if you want to get real puzzled, copy a post that anybody in the comments, take something you've done recently and copy it in there and ask it to write it better and see what happens. You're either going to cry or you're going to go, "Oh, I'm fine." If you're crying, then you should maybe reevaluate how you're writing content and use it to improve. But again, and if you're not using a plagiarism checker and you think you're going to get away with copy and paste and this stuff, it's just not there yet. So be aware of that. And even if you do get yourself and edit yourself to a 10% or less plagiarism, keep in mind, if Google comes around and detects those fingerprints eventually and decides to knock the website down, there's going to be a lot of hurt law firms, and somewhere they're going to be complaining.
One of the things that I have, so actually, let me ask you a question before this. When you're talking plagiarism checker, is that there is no it is a direct cut and paste, right, on plagiarism?
It's usually, well, a lot of times it's similar content, but I'm getting, if I asked it about distracted driving,
Yeah,
I had some stuff come back from other law firms,
yeah,
from state driving handbooks. I mean, because it does. I mean, it's drawing from all these sources, and if you tell it a simple prompt, it's going to just copy and paste these and amalgamate them into
okay,
an answer for you.
okay, okay. One of the questions that I had was, do you see a change in consumer behavior? Like we've spent a lot of time talking about the long tail and content for the long tail. This can generate very unique to an individual a request. I did the other day. Again, I'm doing this divorce in Wisconsin theme. I'm getting a divorce in Wisconsin. I need some guidelines to talk to my children about that. One of my kids has autism. What are the law, and can you make this specific to the laws in Wisconsin, right? No one's going to be writing. I mean, that long tail, I've always kind of mocked the long tail, but like, do we come to a point where we have, this is a replacement for search, where I'm getting personalized, like we work in this paradigm right now where like the search engines are going to take me to the content that's useful to me. What if the engine is actually generating the content that is useful for me, right? Do you see that shift at all?
Yeah, it's something now that you ask it, I have to, think a little bit more about that,
Yeah,
because what are they getting at? Yeah, they're getting their answer. I guess now if a law firm writes a post like that, their goal is to, hey, let's help you answer this. Also, we want your business.
right,
So what's the next step though? That person would you need, if you're looking for all that information, does that help you? It gives you the answer you need. But what's the next step for
right.
you? And how are you going to eventually find the law firm you need? I'm just thinking about what happens if this were to replace, search altogether. I don't know how we get there, because then how do we find the things we need?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm back to the human element.
okay,
And that is, I'm going to speak directly to what Alan said, is when it comes to choosing an attorney, it's not going to be what you wrote. You're still going to have a need to see that attorney in video, or, see her giving a presentation, or photos on social media when she's out in the community, or something like that. I mean, that stuff still works, and it's going to work. And there's that. I don't think I think every decision anyone makes has some element of emotion in it. And I
right,
think hiring an attorney is, off the charts. So there's that. And I think there's something, it's funny. We talked about asking a question. I posed a question: what impact will this new law have on whatever? And it kicked back and said, I can't answer that. So I think we're still in the right about what, right about who, right
yeah,
about when, but the why and the how isn't there yet. And those are the determinant factors in any decision.
right.
So yeah.
Okay. Let me pull from the audience here. This is from Ashley. From a legal writing perspective, what do you think are the chances that AI could accurately pull and apply applicable laws, statutes, and case laws? Terminology for the same concepts changes between states and even localities. It seems like AI would have to get a lot further to accurately source legal content. What do you guys think?
Well, considering I spent 3 years being taught to say it depends, I mean, that's the lawyer's answer for
Yeah, yeah.
everything. Until I pose a particular question to ChatGPT and it comes back with it depends, I'm not
Right.
going to trust it.
Okay.
Matter of fact, ethically, I'd be very uncomfortable if a prospective client would read something and go, "Oh yes, that's exactly right. I'm gonna do it this way," without just taking it as gospel. It's dangerous.
Alan?
And it's, well, I mean, I think Ashley is pulling up some good points, because if we even have something more than a little bit deeper than surface level post that we want to make for a law firm, we I would spend more time trying to get the correct answer out of ChatGPT than I would doing it myself and putting the page together. Because if I'd have to check every single thing it said just for accuracy, whereas if I'm doing the research and I write it down, I know it's accurate because I just did the research.
Right.
So, this is, I mean, I can get quicker with it. I'm sure it will get better as time goes. It's not there. And I would not be comfortable doing something more than most common injuries that occur in a car accident page.
Right.
Because it's again, it's ethical question. Again, more ethics to this.
But let me ask you this. I mean, we've been talking, I think, somewhat in generalities. It's an evergreen content tool, to be sure. It's not yet a thought leadership tool.
Right.
That would be my I would submit that proposition for discussion at this point.
I have to laugh at the question in the chat.
We are all because we brought this up at the beginning, and we should have we meant to kind of humorously address it at the beginning. Dan, you are not qualified to be on this panel because although you are a middle-aged white dude, you are not as bald as me, Alan, and John. So this is.
I'll just cover it up now. We're gonna
strangely here. I'll join you.
How can you?
Now it's just John. Now it's just John. Sorry, y'all.
This is a strangely white bald men talk about ChatGPT.
We gotta maybe we'll expand the panel out next time and do a little bit more vetting.
What's the thing? Grass doesn't grow where something happens.
I don't know. I'm sure ChatGPT could answer that for us. Okay, but Dan actually did have a question I want to post to everyone. 2 questions. First, can you type in what are the best insert legal practice area firms in Seattle, and chat will list 10 firms 1 to 10. How did we get to the top of that list? That is a great question. I have not run that.
I haven't, but it's going to pull from Google rankings, which is we're back.
I wonder what it would pull from. I'm John. You have this open. You're running it right now.
Yeah.
All right. Figure that out, and we'll come back to this question. Next question, and this was more of a comment, David Rakowski. Patients are using Google to diagnose themselves and bring it to their doctors right now. That is one of the most annoying things for doctors to deal with. The self-diagnosed. Google says I have blah blah blah, right? And I think it's actually a really interesting metaphor where that does not work for most doctors, right? It's a pain in the neck, and you guys get it in legal too, right? I've got this, I've got that. What's your take on kind of that? Does this help over-inform or inaccurately over-inform prospective customers?
That's John, because he's the attorney. So John,
he punted it. Yeah. I may have a contrary view here on this one. Oh. I like to assume the intelligence of the public, and so that's why I've always hated condescending content. Okay. That where you're the holier than thou lawyer.
Yeah.
Doesn't think that anyone will understand it. As a matter of fact, legal ethics are written very paternally. Like we have to protect the public against us lawyers, right?
Yep.
So I don't have a problem with educating the client. Clients aren't difficult because they have information. Clients are difficult because they have wrong expectations. Yeah. And that's not a content issue. So I see it a little bit differently. Okay. Would you like me to answer the question, by the way, of what comes up on the searches?
Yeah. What comes up when you search for what did you look for, and then share the results, and ideally where they came from.
Question: what are the best personal injury law firms in Seattle? There are many personal injury law firms in Seattle that may be able to assist you. Blah blah blah. Number 1, Hardwick and Pendergast.
All right.
Number 2, Phillips Law Firm. Number 3, Max Meyer Law PLLC. 4, Craig Swap and Associates. It's important to keep in mind, but hold up,
that's
4 names.
Fascinating. That is fascinating. Dan, I'm glad you asked that question. It's not something I had ever thought through, but
nor did I.
Does AI-driven content start replacing the directories, right? Fascinating. Okay. Romano has another question. Michael always wins the number of the maximum number of questions per quarter that I give on webinars. So you're still well ahead, Michael. Won't the real power of the software be that set up properly, the software could take Search Console data or AdWords data into account to constantly and automatically rewrite content that ranks? Okay, that's an SEO question. I have a bias on the answer on this, but could you, let me rephrase this to both of you. Could you hook ChatGPT into a Search Console data or a data feed coming out of Google to constantly write and then optimize for ranking?
But what happens then after a year where it's coming back on itself? Like I feel like progress stops then.
Yeah.
Like that's my thinking of it. I mean, that's just my initial reaction to that is it will automatically rewrite content that ranks, and then eventually it's going to pull its own ranking content. So then where are we at? So I don't know. There's no human input. Does it take over? Does it start to think? I don't know.
My take on that from an SEO perspective is there are so many other variables beyond the content that actually impact rankings that it would be difficult to do that. I don't know that it's impossible, but I was actually thinking about, and I don't know if either of you two have thought about this. One of my questions for you guys was, can you see a ChatGPT written? So Google doesn't like it from an SEO perspective. Okay. So no, absolute no. But what if you had no index landing pages for advertising that you were using ChatGPT to generate content that is going to maximize a conversion rate off of a ad destination page landing page, right? Can you guys see that happening? Because that does not fall afoul of Google's guidelines. And this, or do we find that when you run that test, the human side of it always outperforms because it's just a thinly rewritten Wikipedia piece, right?
I will say that I went to law school to avoid all things math and science related. So I rely on the fine folks at Mockingbird Marketing for all SEO questions.
I mean, yes, the answer is John answered that perfectly. So this is why I write your content, comrade.
Right.
You do the SEOs.
All right. Interesting. So my take is if you can avoid the SEO side of this, right? The SEO downside, and that's not a small downside. There may be places outside of it, So one of the things, and John, you're the lawyer here, so I'll pose this to you. Do lawyers start writing briefs with this? How does this take over I live in the marketing world and I stop once someone's turned into a client. How does this change, or does this change what's happening for the rest of, I'm so focused on SEO. What happens to the rest of the world, right? That the lawyer lives in, where content is written on the regular?
Yeah, I think there's too much professional risk. Not only because the work product has to be your own, it's your own thought. It's the vanity and the ego involved with that too.
Right.
But particularly when we're talking about litigation, if you have a tech savvy judge or just a judge that really pays attention to the written word, and the quality of your work somehow turns that judge off or gets you a reprimand in court, that's it. It's never going to happen. And so
right.
I think there'll be attorneys that just say, I'm not going to take the risk. I've been doing it fine for all these years. Right. And I've got people that do it. And I hear all of the, the SEO concerns and the Google fecal roster problems. You get your, if you're going to have duplicate content and stuff like that, I'm just not going to take the risk.
Right.
We don't know where this is going to go legislatively either. I mean, lawmakers are always a decade behind on everything for the most part, maybe getting a little quicker now. But when we get into privacy issues and legal issues and legislate, what are the courts going to say about this? That when lawsuits come up, what are the laws going to do? Do we want to start putting all of our time and energy on replacing writers and perfecting this to have it all get smacked down at some point? It's the same thing with the algorithm with Google detecting this. I don't know if I want to start doing, I would be terrified to start handing over to clients AI generated work to have their site destroyed 6 months later because Google has gone no, and that I'm not going to do it. That's why we're going to have to do some serious training with our writers about why maybe that shouldn't happen. So,
okay, so that's a great segue into where I want to go, and we can wrap up on this. You said training your writers. What's the future? How are you guys individually looking at this thing? Someone mentioned it's a content assistant, right? An interesting perspective. How are you guys looking at this thing impacting the way you deliver product to clients? Or is the answer we're gonna wait and see if this explodes, right?
Yeah, I think we're at the beginning of this process. I'll give you some thoughts though.
Yeah.
Hey, if I'm stumped about where to come in on, a post, or I've got thoughts about how I want to make it a thought leadership piece, but I could use some basic material, I think it's great. I appreciate Alan's information about using it more technically for H2s and things like that. So I would and will tell my team, use it as a noodling tool, a brainstorming tool, or a writer's block tool.
Right.
But do not cut and paste. We can't take that risk.
Right.
And we get paid to find the voice, the tone, the personality of the firm, if it's a practice page, but if it's the attorney as a blog post. And I this doesn't do this yet. So
okay, that's my advice. Have to be a tool. It'll have to be a tool because I can't tell them not to use it because it does a lot of good things. And I'm going to use it because, when I run plagiarism checkers, sometimes it comes back with myself from something I wrote 2 years ago. Because last week was hell on the team because we had so many topics so many pages on the exact same topic, just different cities. So when that happens a lot, that's fine. That's where your nuance, this is where the nuance as a writer comes in that we always talk about. It's going to be hard for you to write 5 truck accident pages for this area in Washington in 1 week because you have to be careful. But if I ask it to generate H2s for me and say, okay, now I need more, as long as that can really help. It can really break that monotony. And I think this is going to be a helpful tool. It's just, we're not there to have it write pages.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk through? Anything else on your mind? And if anyone has any other questions, please throw them in. But anything you guys want to address?
I'm good on mine. I mean, I have to go update my post now because I have to, it can do links, it can tell you if you ask it to give you reputable sources, it will. Right. So this is just, we're all learning this as we go. That's why it's so fascinating. Everybody that's attending this now is on the same exact page that we are. We're figuring this out together.
Do you have any insight on how you said reputable sources, and I've noticed when I've asked it to pull citations, it'll frequently, it almost always hits Wikipedia, right? So my kids and their teachers have disagreements over whether or not Wikipedia is a reputable source, but do either of you have any insight on how it determines reputable sources? I mean, I automatically default to links because I'm an SEO by training.
Yeah.
But do you have a different perspective on that? Is it running Ahrefs checks or something like that as a proxy for what reputable sources mean? Because there's a lot of crap on the internet, and it could be pulling from. Here's the thing, that the real challenge for me is exactly what you got into here. There's so much bad crap on the internet. How does it ascertain that, I'll use Wikipedia again as example, the stuff on Wikipedia is pretty accurate by and large, right? How does it do that?
When I asked it to write that 500 word page, it popped up, NHTSA, CDC, University of Utah, and it gave me the link, so I can go verify that. If it popped up with Wikipedia, I wouldn't use it. But just some things I'm not going to use. I'm not going to have it say Nolo. It's been pulling up a lot of find law or Nolo stuff, and obviously I'm not using that. All that's a good starting point too. Which also I'll look at Wikipedia for something. They source they add citations in there. Maybe it's pulling from that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's learning from us. It's going to get better, and it's going to learn what we want it to do. That's why we got to stay ahead of it.
Interesting.
So, Conrad, I'll tell you while Ann was talking, I typed in discuss legal marketing referencing John Reed of Rain BDM.
Okay.
So it introduces me as the founder of Rain BDM, a digital marketing agency. Some of the services that Rain offers to legal clients include search engine optimization, website design, development. We don't. So I'd love to be flattered, but it's wrong, and it proves the supposition,
It proves exactly what Alan's saying. It writes wrong information with a level of believability.
Oh no, I sound great. I mean, I'm really quite accomplished.
Yeah. Hair equivalent of us all having great hair right now. All right. Well, thank both of you for joining. You two were the first people when the first time I saw this we were at a friend's house where we were watching the Michigan game, and we got very sidetracked on this thing. And you two were the first people I thought of. Like, I can't wait to hear what you guys are thinking about this. We have another question. Oh, thank David. You're more than welcome. Yeah, and I'll pass that on. The comment was thoughtful conversation, gents. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank both of you for your insight on this.